Okay, Merry Christmas, folks. I thought kind of long and hard on what I could say that could be meaningful and useful to people. Now, the regular wishes go out to you. I wish you a fun and jolly and loving and caring, beautiful Christmas to you and your family, and that you get to spend it in hearth and home, as it were, I guess. But this particular message is one that I hope carries, more depth than I usually maybe present, and that is, it's going to be controversial, at least initially, when you hear some of the things that I start out with. But I hope you take the time and listen through it, because I really think this could be life-enhancing, and there's still studies that I have to do in respect to it. But so I came across fairly recently this individual who spends time in dark places. And I mean by that is like a dark abode, not dark mental spaces necessarily, but a dark abode for extended periods of time. So maybe 3 to 5 days, for example. There's a reason why he might be doing this if his story is legitimate, and it connects a lot of dots in my past that I find quite interesting, and I think it can maybe connect some dots for you. He does it because he starts to have altered states experiences, very extreme altered state experiences, including what he considers his soul leaving his body and these sorts of things. In the Christian tradition, there's this idea of going into the closet and closing the door and praying. Maybe there's more depth to that concept than might be anticipated. Now, it's pretty recent that we can do scientific studies on this sort of thing. And there is a chemical in our brain naturally induced. It's called dimethyltryptamate. It's a powerful psychedelic drug. It seems to be activated, and this is still somewhat theoretical, when you're in a near-death experience. So, for example, when you get into a car accident or something, you're in an extreme situation of panic and flight, and for some reason this chemical seems to be introduced into your body. And what happens with it, in part, it seems, is that you get these out-of-body experiences associated with it. Now, this can be written away as purely physiological, and maybe that's the case. I mean, I guess to be a proper skeptic, I can't say that that isn't the case, I guess. But I think that there's more going on to it than that, and that is something, beyond this world, potentially, where really a soul resides, or something akin to that. But it is an open question, and it's something that I leave at your feet to decide. But with that said, there was another individual that's done quite a prolific study on dimethyltryptamate. Now, this is external induced dimethyltryptamate, and I'm not suggesting you use it, because it is a very powerful psychedelic and can cause a lot of problems for people if used improperly. But the idea was that he had about 10 or 15 people in this study. His name was Rick Strassman, and he gave placebo, which was sugar introduction, or this different rates of dimethyltryptamate. And the results were quite stunning, because the people's reports were rather unusual and profound, and I won't get into them. I'll leave that up to you if you're interested in it. The book is called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. But, his notion, I guess, the kind of final boil down of his thoughts, was that this chemical might have something directly tied to the spiritual dimension, or something akin to that, if you are to believe that. So why I bring this up during Christmas, both for kind of a miraculous reason as well as potentially a magical reason, I guess, is that this can be done potentially without injecting any chemicals in you and so forth, and that it might allow you to have experiences that are transcendent if you don't believe in the soul. This can give you a far better direct experience, potentially, to analyze whether or not it is real or not. In science, that is the case. You find an empirical way to test the hypothesis then you go and test it. And something as dramatic as this might be worth testing for you if it is something that is on your mind and something that you want to inquiry into. Again, it could just be a phenomenological experience induced in your own mind, but maybe it's something more than that, and maybe this is a way to prove one way or the other to yourself what the nature of it actually is. And so this, again, is something that is arising within you, and you're not externally taking anything, and that's what I think is so profound about it. It's something that, in a certain sense, can be manifested in your own way. So what that means, how this works, if there's anything to it, is that by being in a dark room for an extended period of time, at night we create melatonin. Maybe, I think it's 15 or 30 milligrams of melatonin, something akin to this, usually in a relaxed state at night when you sleep in a dark space. The idea is that this accumulative effect of the melatonin in the darkness, it gathers up. So one day, instead of 15, you get 30 because you got 24 hours of darkness. And that quickly reaches up to like a tipping point where you have enough melatonin, and it flips over to, instead of serotonin, which is typically made in the daytime, it flips over to dimethyltryptamine, thereby giving you these altered state capacities that are very profound. Again, you can look at the analysis of things like near-death experiences potentially to get an idea of what this might be like, because if there's a relationship between the dimethyltryptamate that gets released into your brain in near-death experiences and this, then there would be an kinship there. It just seems rational. And so you can look at all those accounts without getting into the woo-woo land of externally induced DMT, which again I'm not suggesting, because this one you have a lot more control over potentially than that, but still I suspect it will be a very powerful experience, maybe even overwhelming. But so that is all to say that this is something that I find very interesting, that can be testable, that can potentially go so far as to prove to you whether or not you have a soul in these sorts of interesting things. And it seems fitting to me to bring this to you potentially in and around Christmas. So many well wishes to you, Merry Christmas, and a very Happy New Year.